Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason. I'm speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas, and I am finishing up my series on the top 20 movies of the 2000s. I'm going to talk about the top five, my top five list of this decade. Um, Basically, I've done four. This is my fourth video on this decade. Like I said before, great decade for me. Getting out of high school and starting college, graduating from college this decade. Saw a lot of movies, a lot of blockbusters, a lot of sci-fi, a lot of superhero movies, a lot of anime or animation movies, and so I'm starting my number five with one of my favorite animated movies from Pixar. It is called Wall-E. Wall-E, about a robot after all human life basically is left Earth because there's too much trash. Um, that there's You see one robot that's still around who kind of is a trash compactor robot that compacts the trash into cubes and kind of organizes it so it's not doesn't look so messy. I guess looks more the trash looks pretty organized. Um, and we see Wall-E is kind of lonely by himself. He has somewhat, he's intelligent, kind of can think for himself, he can't really talk, and he longs to fall in love with a girl robot, basically, because the only thing he has left is a video of the movie Hello Dolly, in which he sees two characters holding hands, and so his whole goal is to hold hands with a female. This is where he meets Eva, who's a robot that comes looking for chances of life on Earth. After all, human life is now living on a ship for the last couple generations. I can't remember how long they've been on the ship, for a really long time, through several generations, I believe. So Eva's looking for plant life or something that can say we can come back to Earth and start farming again, I guess, and start life again on Earth. Wally falls in love with her right away, and then follows her back to the ship. Anyways, that's where the kind of plot goes. But I love this movie for the love story, really, between Wall-E and Eva, who can't even talk, really, except Wall-E can say Eva, and Eva can say Wall-E. And that's about, but yet through their physical interactions, you kind of still tell what they're trying to do. And it's one of the best love stories, which is incredible considering it's two cartoon robots. And I'm into that love story more than I'm into most romantic comedies. They did such a well job. I'm so invested in the relationship, and through the two of those two characters at the end, I really want to see them together. Even though it's funny because they're robots, they're not really robots. Don't have genders. Yet somehow Wall-E seems masculine in that he's this boxy robot. And he's named Wall-E, so he's kind of a masculine name. Eva has the Eva kind of female name, and she's all kind of more rounded and more curvy, and so she gives off this female type attitude or look to her that you kind of believe that they're male female robots, even though there's no genders. But I just love that. It's really sweet, and it's a very funny movie. I love the beginning part where there's, I don't know how, 10-15 minutes of like no dialogue, just Wall-E going through trash and finding different things, and somehow there's enough there to have a lot of physical comedy that really enjoyable as the first part of the movie that really hooks you into the movie. So yeah, one of my favorite anime movies of all time, one of my favorite Pixar movies for sure. Wall-E came out in 2008. Number 4 on my list is a Best Picture winner called A Beautiful Mind, which I don't have a Blu-ray of at the moment. It won Best Picture back in 2001, starring Russell Crowe and Jennifer Connelly and some other actors I'm forgetting. Based on a true story of, I believe his name is Nash, a mathematician who's a genius with math, and kind of discovers a theory that is very monumental in math, I guess, and is used for they use it for economics and stuff like that, and it's really helped, I guess, the world economically. And so he wins at the end of the movie, based on a true story, he wins the Nobel Prize for, I guess, I don't know, math or science or whatever. And so it kind of goes through his life as he's in college, and he develops this mathematical theory. Also falls in love with will be his wife, played by Jennifer Connelly. And as the movie goes on, you find out something's not right with Nash, and it turns out that he actually is schizophrenic. He sees images that aren't there. He sees people. He interacts with these people that don't really exist, that are only in his mind. But he doesn't know that. He thinks they're real, and then they tell him to do things that are crazy. He's very uh, paranoid. He thinks the government's after him, or that he's working for the government and the Russians are after him. Uh, yeah, so he believes all these things, and then when you find out, and he's trying to go get help to try to cure it, but it's really hard to cure it, and but he kind of finally realizes, how to somewhat tell reality from fantasy, and able to have somewhat of a life with his wife and a newborn, and just kind of follows life. Anyway, just very interesting movie dealing with mental issues like that, which you can't, which must have been very hard to live through for him and his wife. And Russell Crowe gives one of the great performances, I think, one of my favorite performances of his. Someone who's very socially awkward, but is a genius, who's kind of going crazy. He does such a great job. I thought deserved the Oscar for this year. Um, yeah, it's a really good drama, thriller, some parts, mystery parts. Yeah, excellent movie. Beautiful Mind from 2001. Number three is one of my favorite all-time comedies, movie that I've watched, and also my favorite Christmas movie of all time. One I watch every Christmas. It's called How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Came from 2000, yeah, year 2000. Starring Jim Carrey as the famous Grinch. Story is well known. Of course, there was a cartoon way back in the 60s, maybe, that I grew up watching, as a lot of people did, about the story from Dr. Seuss. Of course, it was a Dr. Seuss book first. And to make a live action movie, it's like, how do you make this short story into a live action movie? Of course, they had to add so much backstory to the Grinch character, and so many story elements. And Cindy Lou, they really do a lot with her character, making her a main character. And they do such a great job adapting that book. I think it's such a great story, actually. I just love the story of, someone who is, mean and is lonely, who wants to destroy, Christmas and everybody's happiness. And, he's a Grinch, of course, just in the name. Kind of like Ebenezer Scrooge, kind of that character nobody likes. And yet, somehow finds through kindness, people being kind to him, or seeing people being kind to each other, or Cindy Lou being kind to him, he kind of sees that there's more to Christmas than just presents, the material goods of Christmas, as we think of Christmas time as a time to, as if you're a kid anyways, time to get presents. But it's more than that. It's more about, being kind to one another, like I said, and family get-togethers, and it's a time to feel good. Christmas is a feel good holiday for sure. Not to mention, celebrating Jesus Christ's birth, also a huge part if you're a Christian. But overall, just the holiday you're supposed to feel good about. And here's a guy who doesn't feel good, or whatever, the Grinch doesn't feel good about Christmas, and so it's good to see his journey, his arc, to finally, enjoying Christmas, but also accepting kindness from people like the Who's, who he hates, or that they hate him. And so yeah, I just love that story for the Grinch, and actually a very feel good movie. But it's also hilarious. Jim Carrey's one, I think, my favorite performance of his, which is strange because he's under this costume, he's under so much makeup. You can't really recognize Jim Carrey, but yet through his actions, he's one of the greatest physical comedians I've seen on screen. He still can really develop this character and make it unique, and you can see the Jim Carrey physical humor in it, and he's just so funny. Directed by Ron Howard, one of my favorite directors. Yeah, I just laughed so much through all this movie. Yeah, one of my all-time favorites. Comedies, Christmas movies. I watch it so many times, never get tired of it. How the Grinch Stole Christmas from 2000. Number two is one of my favorite suspense sci-fi movies. I saw it in the movie theater and it gave me so many jump scares, and it's called Signs, which came out in 2002. M. Night Shyamalan movie, directed and wrote, and stars Mel Gibson, Joaquin Phoenix, Abigail Spencer, I believe Roy Culkin, one of the Culkin kids, and about an alien invasion. But no one kind of believes. Of course, no one's gonna believe you when you say you think something's going on. Aliens are invading. He kind of sees some aliens, Mel Gibson's character, and he doesn't want to believe at first, but after a while, the evidence is too much that he believes that there actually are aliens that are going to invade. And his brother Joaquin Phoenix believes it, and they're trying to figure out a way to secure their house in case of an invasion, and what they're going to do, and boarding it up. And of course, it's called Signs because they saw crop signs, because it used to be a thing where we see crop signs, and people, it's man-made, but kind of this idea that maybe aliens made it. And this movie kind of goes with the idea that actually aliens did make the signs in the crops, different symbols and stuff like that, kind of communicating with themselves of when to attack and all that. But yeah, it's just great. I love a good alien invasion movie, and it's a good alien invasion movie, great sci-fi idea, and it's very suspenseful, scary at parts, a lot of jump out scares. It's one of the, when I was in the movie theater, I jumped out so many times, and he does it so well in that Shyamalan in this movie. The way he just puts a camera in one spot and just sits there, and so you're just sitting there with suspense, like what's going to happen? Something's going to happen. I can hear from the music something's going to happen. All of a sudden, an alien will pop out for 1 second, and you just go, "Oh my god, there's an alien!" Like, and I don't know. He does such a good job. It happens several times during this movie where an alien pops out of nowhere and just, doesn't do anything scary or violent. It's just the fact that, this alien kind of pops up, catches you by surprise. He just does such a good job of catching you by surprise in this movie. And the performance is really good. Mel Gibson, great. Joaquin Phoenix, Abigail Spencer, Warwick Oaken, all four do such a great job. And this is the first movie I ever saw Abigail Spencer in. I thought, man, this girl has a career. She's so young, and she did. She's had a pretty good young career, at least as far as a child actor, a really good child actress. It also has some good humor in it. Surprisingly, there are some parts that are very, very funny. That really does a good job of balancing out the scary and the humor. I think do such a good job. And I also love the overall story of the Mel Gibson character. He's a priest of some kind, not a Catholic priest because he's married with kids, so he's some kind of priest that he maybe Lutheran or something, where he's married and has kids. His wife is dead at the beginning of the movie, and you find out more during the movie what happened with his wife. But what we know is that he quit being a minister because of his wife's death, and he kind of loses his faith in God and doesn't really want anything to do with God. But through this tragic event of this alien invasion, he actually grows in his faith in God and believes in God again. So I love the spiritual aspect of the movie too. And so that's why number 2 is Signs from 2002. So it leads me to my number 1 movie of the decade of 2000s. No surprise. I think I've talked about this movie probably before on other episodes. But all-time great epic fantasy movie, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. This is the extended edition. This is, I think, the theatrical edition of the movie. I already talked about Lord of the Rings. Fellowship of the Ring was number 11 on my list. Two Towers didn't make my list. I don't like that nearly as much as the other two. But this movie is one of my all-time great movies. One great theatrical experiences of seeing this in the theater. It's like a 3-hour movie. I saw it 4 times in the theater, which is 2 more times than I've ever seen a movie in the theater. I've never seen a movie more than 2 times. I saw this 4 times. I loved it all 4 times. Never got tired of it. It's just when you talk about fantasy, I guess I like fantasy epics and action and all that. It's so well done, and it just does the best at all the aspects of what am I trying to say? The costuming, the special effects, makeup, set designs, miniature designs, cinematography, all those aspects of the film, besides like the main part of acting and directing and which is also very good. But it is the best at doing all that. Like the costumes are amazing, makeup is amazing. I've never seen makeup that good before, especially the orcs look so gross, and uh, the way they're made up. And set designs. I never thought much about set designs until I watched this movie. And I was like, wow, these sets are just absolutely, especially when you watch the special features, you just get a really idea of how many huge sets they had to build and how amazing the sets are. It gives you more appreciation for the film. Um, the musical score is one of my favorite musical scores of all time by Howard Shore. The last song, "Into the West" by Annie Lennox, is one of my favorite all-time songs. I mean, everything that they did in this movie, they just did the best. And just like, how can you say this movie is not one of the greatest when every single aspect of filmmaking they just did the best? And it still holds. This came out 2003, still holds up today. Everything, nothing looks dated to me or out of place. The CGI looks still great, and they do CGI, but they also do, like I said, great makeup and costuming and all that stuff that works really well. And they had to, they had to, I think, invent new ways of doing CGI. He had one of the first or best motion capturing performances of Gollum by Andy Serkis. I mean, the Gollum character just almost looks real, like a real character. It's amazing what they did with that character. And he gives such a great performance. You want to give Andy Serkis an Oscar, and there was a lot of talk of him getting a Best Supporting Actor nomination, but they didn't because he wasn't in the movie. But his performance is in the movie because he was acting out those scenes as Gollum, and Gollum was probably the best CGI character of all time. So well done, and it's just a great story of good versus evil, and just pushing on towards a hardship through the impossible to get this task done of getting this ring to Mount Doom and destroying the evil Sauron. And just, of course, because it's the third movie, you have all the payback, or, you know, watching, these three movies and you get to the third one, you finally get the payoff of defeating Sauron and seeing the characters go back and see what happens to them, and seeing a happy ending for all these different characters. There's so many different characters. That's why they have so many different endings to the movie, because you want to see what happens to all of them, because you're so invested in all these characters. So yeah, it's one of the greatest stories ever told. It's a famous book, of course, and just it was a film that many thought was impossible to make, and they made it, and it was great and fantastic and everything I ever wanted it to be. So that's why Return of the King for me is one of the all-time great trilogy, great fantasy epics, and my favorite movie of this decade, 2000. So thank you for watching, and please feel free to comment on my whole list. If you watch the other videos, tell me what was your favorite films of the 2000s. Tell me what you think of my films that I put on there. I would love to hear it, and comment back on it. Love seeing the comments, and just love seeing that you guys are listening and watching me, and hopefully enjoying what I'm putting out here. And I just thank you all for subscribing and liking my videos. I appreciate it.